As human beings, we experience many different types of weather: sun, clouds, rain, and snow. The weather changes from day to day, week to week, month to month. And as we're experiencing these changes, we may notice that our mood is affected. As human beings, the weather that we experience has a positive correlation with our psychological well-being. Many studies have been done to help support this theory that there is a connection between weather and mood. 3 in particular help to support this conclusion, and they're done by Wong, Katunda, Atima, and their colleagues. They have research to help back up this idea. With this following research, we can see that weather does have a positive connection with how we humans feel on a daily basis. The first one is done by Wong and his colleagues. The article, Relationship Among Weather Effects, Investors' Moods, and Stock Market Risk, an analysis of bull and bear markets in Taiwan, Japan, and Hong Kong. Wong and his associates wanted to see how weather affected the quality of work. So what they did was they looked at whether or not investors were being affected by what was going on outside. And they noticed that high temperature, high humidity, and dense cloud cover brought more irritability to the investors, which in turn brought about more of a negative change in the stock market. This helps to conclude that we are affected by weather, and that in turn can affect our quality of work. I've noticed that. I work with children, and when they're playing outside and we're out there watching them, if it's hot outside, if the sun is just beating down, I'm more likely to be a little bit more irritable with them. Whereas if it's cooler, maybe there's a slight breeze, a little cloudy, I'm a little more kind and I interact better with them, which in turn helps me to have a better work day and better quality of work itself. This helps to show that certain weather does have positive correlation with how we feel, which then, as I said, affects the quality of work that we produce. Another study done by Katunda and their associates is called Weather, Mood, and Helping Behavior, a comparative study between 2 Indian cities, Chenal and Mysore. And what they did with this study was, in 2 different cities, they looked at people at 2 different zoos, and they had them answer a questionnaire about the moods that they were feeling that day. Something that was very interesting from their findings was not necessarily what people put on the questionnaire themselves, but how willing people were to actually fill out the questionnaire. They noticed that in the city that had a warmer climate, people were more willing to answer the questionnaire. From this finding, we can see that people's willingness or wanting to help and to answer the questionnaire, whatever it might be, was affected by the weather. This helps us to see that weather does affect our mood, which in turn plays a part in how we interact with others. This again can kind of connect with the first study in how we're working, and again how we're interacting with others. That is affected by the weather. The last study is by Atima and colleagues, and it's called Season and Weather Effects on Travel-Related Mood and Travel Satisfaction. This is something that I hadn't thought of before. How does weather affect us while we're traveling? What they found was that they contacted people from 3 different cities in Sweden and asked them how they were feeling before and after they traveled. And again, something that was interesting was that it wasn't always the same depending on how they traveled. Higher temperatures and sun tended to relax the travelers unless they were walking or cycling, which makes sense. If you're outside and it's hot and you're having to cycle to work or to wherever you're going, you probably won't be in the best mood. Whereas if you're in a car or in a train, it's not going to matter as much. Rain and snow did contribute to a negative mood more often than not, whatever the mode of transportation was. So this again was a very interesting find, that the type of weather was not always, it did not always affect the travelers the same. It depended on the type of travel. With that said, we can see that weather does still affect the way that we feel, especially when we're directly in contact with it. From these studies, and from my own experiences, and from your own experiences, I'm sure you can see that weather does affect the way that we feel. It affects the way that we work, how we interact with others, and our overall mood when we're traveling. Positive and negative moods occur on and off all day. And when we look at it more closely, they can be affected by the weather. The worse the weather, the more negative feelings we have. The better the weather, the happier we are. With that said, the type of weather can be good or bad for our moods depending on the activity that we are engaged in. So, the next time that you're outside, I want you to pay attention to how you're feeling, and then look at what type of weather is outside. Are you being affected by it?